But we're going to continue, and I just want to briefly recap in as short a period of time as I can what we covered last week, and that is a text we used, the book of Luke chapter 3, verses 18 through 20. And it says, "And with many other words, John exhorted the people and preached the good news to them. But when John rebuked Herod the Tetrarch because of Herodias, his brother's wife, and all the other evil things he had done, Herod added this to them all. He locked John up in prison." As I told you last week, that there is a balance between being a preacher and a patriot, all right? But John gives us a good model here where, as I told you, he used words to accomplish his task. He preached the good news about Christ. He rebuked government officials for what he had done wrong. That was Herod. He rebuked the immorality that was taking place that Herod was involved in. He addressed evil in government itself. And he suffered the consequences for what he did and the things that he said. Now, the pulpits of 1776 were exposed to evil in a way that led to independence, as we all so well know and enjoy. So the sermon text is leading us to address the relationship between the pulpit and the black robe and all that means. The historical precedent, the first thing I spoke about was the historical precedent. In the early 1700s, the men of God in their pulpits rose up and spoke against the injustices that were going on. They had a cry, and that cry was, "No king but King Jesus." All right, that's what they said. Well, the word got back to King George III in England, and he was infuriated about what was happening every Sunday as he was being roasted, if you will. And he created the phrase, as best I can tell historically, about that black-robed insurrectionist. Well, that's all you need to Americans. You just call them a name, and they'll make something great out of it. And the newspapers here in the colonies picked it up, and they dubbed them as the Black Robe Regiment or the Black Robe Brigade, because they were actually at war against England long before the first shots were fired. The second thing that I spoke about was the God-ordained principle to join the Black Robe Regiment. That, as the scriptures say in Romans 13, verse 4, the authorities are God's servants sent for your good. Those are key words, sent for your good. But if you are doing wrong, of course you should be afraid, for they have the power to punish you. The United States of America was established not solely on the vision of the Founding Fathers, but on the unchanging principles of God. And I'm going to show you in great detail this morning what I mean by saying that statement. But any government that fails in its duty to do good for the citizenry must be replaced. That's what the Founding Fathers said. That's what the Black Robe Regiment said back in the 1700s. You see, you're not required to obey laws or follow ungodly leaders. You do not have to do that. As children don't have to obey parents if they ask them to do something evil. They don't need to. They are excused from that children obeying your parents when there's evil involved. Wives, when we talk about wives in the family being, to use the word in Ephesians, to submit to their husbands. Wives don't submit to their husbands when the husbands ask them to do something ungodly. Want them to look at pornography or take them to strip joints. I ask them to do things and go places that they shouldn't go. There's no place in there that they would follow that and be obedient. And even employees are not required to follow their employers when the employers are leading them in the wrong direction. As I've told you before, I actually resigned my position as the president of a company because the owner of that company asked me to lie. I mean, bald-faced lie in court, and I just refused to do it. So there was a preacher, one of the Black Robe Regiment. His name was Samuel West. And this is what he said: "Our obligation to promote the public good extends as much to the opposing extreme exertions of arbitrary power that is injurious to the state as it does to the submitting to the good and wholesome laws. No man, therefore, can be a good member of the community that is not as zealous to oppose tyranny as he is to obey magistrate. That's pretty strong words. So we should be zealous to follow our leaders, but when those leaders are going in the wrong direction, doing things that are immoral, speaking against the Word of God, then we should be just as zealous in civil disobedience against them.